A group of last-minute hires are brought aboard the USS Vendanza for its final circuit. First, it's scheduled to resupply the miners at Jeremiah 6, and then return with a load of ore. But this is an Alien the role-playing game adventure, so you know there's far more to Rapture Protocol than just that. Will you find this to be a satisfying kickoff to a brand new Alien the role-playing game campaign? Or will this be as welcome at your game table as a facehugger hat? Well, you're about to find out because I'll be sharing my review right after this. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Today, I am going to share my review of Alien the Role-Playing Game Evolved Edition Rapture Protocol from Free League Publishing. This box set with PDFs carries an MSRP of $39.99. If you'd rather just grab the PDFs alone, you can do so over at DriveThruRPG for $19.99. Having said all that, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Rapture Protocol for Alien, the role-playing game. A few things to mention before we get stuck in. First of all, my friends over at Free League Publishing were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. These days, it's important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page within the booklet. We're not going to take a look at each and every card or pre-generated character and so forth, but I do want to give you a really good feel for what you're going to find inside this box set. And then lastly, this is an adventure. So if you're a player and your game mother has picked up Rapture Protocol, maybe they're talking about picking up Rapture Protocol, by all means, keep in mind there are spoilers ahead, so you have been warned. Also, if your game master is considering picking this up, let them know about this review. That way they can approach Rapture Protocol and make a far more informed buying decision. All right, so what is in the box? Let's take a peek. I'm actually going to save the adventure booklet for last. So if you're familiar with Alien the role-playing game, either the original edition or the latest Evolved edition, you know with these box set adventures, we always get cards, we get pre-generated characters, we get tokens. So nothing has changed as far as that with Rapture Protocol. So we have 5 pre-generated characters, and each one will have 3 personal agenda cards because the adventure is broken up into 3 acts. Each act, you're going to give your players a new agenda card for that act for their player character. So we've got those. Very nicely done. Paper stock on these is excellent. Of course, like any game, I would sleeve the cards just in case. Then we get our NPCs. So we have a variety of NPCs with information on the back. Ooh, the xenomorph. Spoiler. I know, it's Alien the role-playing game. You are expecting something else? So we've got those. We've got some tokens, dual-sided. There is also a set of miniatures for Alien the role-playing game, which you can utilize with Rapture Protocol. I have shared a first look at those. So if you want to get a better look at those miniatures, by all means, check out the episode of the Gaming Gang Dispatch, where I took a deep dive and we took a peek at each of the miniatures. But you don't have to have the miniatures because you've got the tokens here as well. We have our 5 pre-gens for each of your players. So this is designed for 3 to 5 players. So if you don't have a full complement of 5 players, then simply take the unused pre-generated characters and run them as NPCs. So we will get the breakdown of their stats and then a bit of information which is relatively publicly known. So we've got that. We will have different handouts for the players. There is Jeremiah 6. We have some other cool handouts. So these are supposed to be readouts from various different screens. Very nice. We also have some maps here. So this is where the big finale is probably going to take place on this. Now, the paper stock on these is really very, very nice. And then it also is treated so this is just not simply paper as far as these maps go. So we will have a map of the mining base as well as the ship, the USS Findanza. Here's the base. Here is the ship. So the first act takes place on the ship. Second act and third acts will take place on the mining base. And then we have the Game Mother's map so that they can track various different entities moving around the ship, also moving around the base. As far as these extras go, really, really cool. Very good production quality for all of these. I got to be honest, I would have liked to have seen some more equipment cards. You can use Rapture Protocol with either the core rulebook or with the starter set. So you don't have to have the core book in order to use this, but you do need either the core book or the starter set. Then we get into the adventure. As I mentioned, this is broken up into 3 acts. And here come the spoilers. So the premise is that the player characters are essentially just brought on board last minute to run this broken down star freighter, the USS Findanza, to Jeremiah 6 to resupply the miners and then pick up a load of ore. They're supposed to bring it back, and then the ship is going to be decommissioned and broken down for scrap. So right off the bat, the player characters are on a star freighter that is not exactly in the best condition. In fact, it's already in a state of disrepair because a lot of salvage has already started on the ship. So I thought that's a very cool little side note because it's going to create some tension and some stress for the player characters because they're on board a ship that could be falling apart around them. They're not sure. So what's going on the mining base? Well, alien eggs have been found, and we're also introduced to this cult. On the mining base, we end up with the various different miners breaking off into 2 factions. One is a faction of miners who just want to get out of there. They want to survive. And then the other miners are cultists who believe that the xenomorphs are there to destroy humanity, to end humanity, that humanity needs to be wiped out so that it can move on to its next stage of evolution, which doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense, but still, they are cultists. So what has happened here is that there is a xenomorph loose, and you have 2 factions who are at odds with each other because what the cultists want is for the xenomorph to get free and leave the mining base so it can spread devastation, right? So that is what they're aiming to do. And then, of course, you've got the miners who, that faction just wants to survive and get the hell out of there. So this is what the player characters find themselves thrown into. Now, prior to them getting to the mining base, they learn that there's something on board the Star Freighter. And it turns out they have got a stowaway. And the stowaway tells them that they're just trying to get back to Earth. Stress and strain of being out in space has finally got to them, and they just want to go home. So they have stowed away on board the Star Freighter. And of course, there's more to it than just that. Turns out that they are a member of the cult. And I guess it turns out that at this point in time in the timeline, people know about the xenomorphs, or at least these cultists know. So then, of course, we've got Weyland Yutani that's involved as well. They send a ship to essentially get the xenomorph and the eggs to transport them back. And of course, they're going to wipe out all witnesses to what's been going on the mining base. So a lot of moving parts with this adventure itself. I will point out, though, that I think as far as the various different adventures which have been released for Alien, the role-playing game, the prior edition, of course, now we've got Rapture Protocol. They all sort of fall into a particular rut. And this is a cinematic adventure. So this is not designed for the players to role-play these characters beyond this adventure. Is it possible? Sure, it is possible. But for the most part, this can be run as a one-shot, even though it is the first chapter of a 3-part campaign for Alien, the role-playing game. But what I find is it's always got to have an alien, right? So you always have to have an alien because it is Alien, the role-playing game. So there's really no surprises there. Everybody's always got their own personal agendas. There seems to always be a hidden traitor in the mix. So that is the case with Rapture Protocol, because not only do you have the NPC who's the stowaway, one of the crew members who was hired to come on board, one of the player characters, is also going to be a traitor and part of this cult. So, like I said, a lot of these adventures tend to kind of fall into this rut where it's going to just eventually end up being the player characters trying to survive a xenomorph, while there's also someone in the mix who is trying to be a thorn in their side and to probably get all the rest of the player characters killed to achieve their agenda. Now, is that necessarily a bad thing? No, it's actually a pretty cool adventure overall. But if you stack this up with the other adventures that we've seen for Alien, the role-playing game, they all share very, very similar beats. So Rapture Protocol, well, being a pretty cool adventure, doesn't necessarily stand out as being something real new and real unique. It's sort of like, well, okay, we've seen this before, except for the cult that wants to get the xenomorph exposed to far more people. All right, so that is a peek inside Rapture Protocol, as well as a little bit of a discussion about the adventure that's contained within. So let's swing on over to the other camera so I can share some final thoughts, as well as my review score. As far as the production quality, once again, top notch, as we expect from Free League Publishing. The cards, nice thick cardstock. The maps, nice thick paper. It is treated. It will hold up through some abuse at your table. Plenty of room on those maps for the tokens. We used the miniatures, had no problems with that. So obviously those tokens are certainly going to fit. So all in all, really, really top-notch production quality on this. Now, as far as the adventure itself, as I mentioned, it's a cool adventure, but it just seems like pretty much every other Alien, the role-playing game adventure that we've seen previously. There's always a xenomorph. It's chasing down the player characters in whatever situation. And then we've got a hidden traitor in the midst of the player characters. Now, if your group hasn't played other Alien the role-playing game adventures, then I'm sure they're really going to enjoy this. If they have played previously released adventures, they might feel this is a little more ho-hum because it's sort of been there, seen that already. Just wanted to point that out. So on a scale of 0 to 10, I give Alien, the role-playing game, Evolved Edition, Rapture Protocol, a 7 out of 10. Like I said, like the adventure, you might like it more if it's your first Alien, the role-playing game adventure, truth be told. All right, that's it for this time out. If you like the Gaming Gang and would like to support the outlet, you can do so in a few ways. First, by utilizing our affiliate links to the One Bookshelf sites, such as DriveThruRPG. To do so, simply visit gaminggang.com, click on one of our banners. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get 5% of that sale. You can also make a one-time donation by way of PayPal or become a monthly member of our Patreon. You'll find links to all that in the show notes. Also, down in those show notes, you're going to find an invite link to our Discord server. It's absolutely free to sign up, so be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. And if you do ring that bell, make sure you select all notifications, because it'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this review, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central, right here on YouTube, as I bring you the latest in tabletop role-playing game news and more. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Thank you kindly for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.